Strigoi. The Strigoi is one of the most important of the vampire-like figures in Romanian folklore and is usually described as a dead person who is restless and is able to return to cause harm to the living, bringing with it illness, exhaustion, misfortune, or even death. In some traditions, there were also living Strigoi who had supernatural powers and could become dangerous after death. Unlike the stylish vampire found in modern films, the Strigoi was closely linked with the fear of the grave and the possibility that someone you knew might come back from the dead. The Strigoi has also been included in modern fantasy, for example in the Castlevania franchise, where part of the inspiration for its world comes from Romanian vampire folklore.
Moroi. The Moroi is also a Romanian figure linked with the supernatural dead, though the precise meaning differs from one tradition to another. In certain accounts, it designates a restless spirit. In others, it is connected with people who died under special circumstances, or with creatures able to siphon off the vitality of the living. There is an overlap between Moroi and Strigoi, which makes it hard to divide them into entirely separate types. The name has also appeared in modern vampire fiction, for example in the universe of the Vampire Diaries and in the Vampire Academy series, even though the fictional versions take substantial liberties with the original folklore.
Jiangshi. The Jiangshi is based on Chinese folklore and appears very different from the European vampire. It is usually depicted as a reanimated corpse wearing burial clothes and with its arms held out in front of it. The well-known hopping motion became particularly popular in later films, for example in Mr. Vampire. However, the most significant difference is in what it feeds on. Rather than merely drinking blood, the Jiangshi is linked to siphoning off qi, that is, the vital energy of living people. The creature has also appeared in games, such as Darkstalkers, thus helping to introduce the Chinese hopping vampire to a much wider modern audience.
Vetala. The Vetala is part of Indian mythology, but it would be incorrect to call it merely an Indian vampire. It is more accurately described as a supernatural spirit connected with dead bodies and cremation sites. It has the ability to occupy or bring about the animation of a corpse, and is generally depicted as intelligent, clever, and capable of speaking. In the well-known collection called the Vetala Panchavimshati, a Vetala puts a king to the test by telling him stories, posing riddles, and asking moral questions. The image of the Vetala has been reinterpreted in modern Indian television and films, and in games and fantasy fiction, it is sometimes used as a kind of supernatural undead being. Unlike a conventional blood-drinking vampire, the Vetala stands for something more general, a spirit that uses a human corpse as a vessel.
Penanggalan. The Penanggalan is part of Malay folklore and is one of the most frightening vampire-like beings in the mythology of Southeast Asia. It is said that the creature is able to detach its head from its body and then fly about at night with its internal organs hanging behind it. There is a strong connection between it and blood, and it is especially dreaded in connection with childbirth. The creature has influenced modern Southeast Asian horror films such as Penanggal, and similar images have also been used in fantasy games and on television. Unlike the undead vampire, the Penanggalan is generally shown as a living woman who has acquired this supernatural appearance, which makes it a completely different type of vampire-like creature. Krasue. The Krasue is a supernatural being in the folklore of Southeast Asia, especially that of Thailand and the surrounding areas. It is usually shown as a floating woman's head with her internal organs dangling below it. It is believed that at night, the Krasue looks for blood or raw flesh, and in some traditions, it is specifically linked to pregnant women and childbirth. The creature gained international fame through films such as Krasue Inhuman Kiss, in which the legend was presented as a tragic supernatural horror story. Even though the Krasue is nowadays frequently referred to as a vampire, it originates in its own local tradition and not from the European vampire myth. Aswang. The Aswang is one of the most well-known supernatural figures in Philippine folklore. But there is an important point to note. The Aswang does not refer to a single type of creature. The word may be used to describe a number of different supernatural beings, such as witches, shapeshifters, ghouls, cannibalistic creatures, and vampiric ones. In some versions, the creatures feed on humans or eat blood and internal organs. The Aswang has become especially prominent in modern Filipino media, for example in the Netflix animated series Tracey, which includes several supernatural beings based on Philippine folklore. Therefore, rather than representing one species of vampire, the Aswang is more accurately seen as a family of terrifying supernatural traditions.
Vrykolakas. The Vrykolakas is a creature from Greek folklore and is known as a hazardous undead revenant. Various traditions provided different explanations as to how a person could become one, such as having been buried in an improper manner, committing a religious offense, or because of other circumstances connected with death. After it had returned, the Vrykolakas was able to harass households, attack people, and cause fear or bad luck. It was not necessarily the kind of vampire that drinks blood as we understand it today. In some modern games and fantasy fiction, the name has been taken on, for example in Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons, where undead beings inspired by the Vrykolakas are usually turned into more ordinary fantasy monsters. Nevertheless, the original folklore is considerably wider than these fictional representations.
Upyr. The Upyr is part of the broader group of Slavic vampire beliefs. Various names and forms occur throughout Eastern Europe, which means there was never a single universal description. In numerous traditions, it was an undead creature that came back to harm the living, vital force or blood being an important element. Modern games and fantasy stories have taken extensive inspiration from Slavic vampire ideas, the term having been used in works such as The Witcher, where the supernatural beings are heavily influenced by Slavic folklore. Nevertheless, the original Upyr was not a standardized fantasy creature, and its significance lies in the much older Slavic fear of the dangerous dead returning from the grave.
Nosferatu. Nosferatu marks the moment when the vampire transitions from being a figure in folklore to one in modern horror. The name gained fame thanks to Bram Stoker's Dracula, particularly because of the 1922 film Nosferatu. Unlike the refined aristocrat, this vampire was shown as thin, corpse-like, animalistic, and extremely disturbing. The character has since appeared in numerous films, games, and television adaptations, as shown by the 2024 film Nosferatu, which introduced the classic image to a new generation. In a strange manner, Nosferatu also brought the vampire back to its earlier origins, the fear of a dead body, which should have stayed dead, but somehow came back to the world of the living.